The challenges facing landlords are, it does seem at times like the government is against landlords, private landlords. And I'm really, really vocal, and I feel really passionate about the fact that private landlords use their own money to bring, more often than not, derelict housing back into use. And yes, they make money out of it, but it's a business like any other business. So why shouldn't they?
Hello, welcome. This is Property Box News Podcast. I'm Simon Everson, and I have got a guest in the studio with me today. I'm thrilled to have along. A familiar face on TV shows such as Wish You Were Here many years ago, The Sky Travel Guide, and Homes Under the Hammer. He excelled as a contestant on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, enduring numerous, I always have to be careful, I'll say Bush-Tucker trials. It's always a tongue twister for me. As a writer, published several books on property, on travel, as well as more recently a series of children's books, all of which we'll talk about later. But I'm thrilled to have in the studio today the one and only Martin Roberts.
Yay.
Welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Great to see you. Thanks for coming along.
Pleasure.
And how are you? How's the eyes?
Oh
That was
my
quite
gosh,
recent.
what an experience that was. If anyone didn't know, I was just there gardening in my house, and I just happened to chop down this particular plant called euphorbia. And it's
Euphorbia?
Euphorbia, yeah. And if you Google it, you'll find it's euphorbia. And it...
Hang on.
Yeah, it's something to do with Brexit. It's nothing to do with Brexit. Yeah, it's nothing to do with Brexit. But it's this plant, and it's like people like it at the moment because it's like an evergreen plant, and it has like these little yellowy sort of leafy things which aren't really flowers. And I just chopped it down and got some of the little white sap that came out of the stem on my hands. And I went, ugh, yuck. Washed it off, but some of it went on my trousers and on my top. And later, I rubbed my eyes. And this plant, this sap, is designed to stop animals attacking this plant. And it's developed this sap, which is just horrible. So at 3 o'clock the following morning, I was in A&E having some really seriously nasty times. It took 5 days to get it better. So please, if you're a gardener, look out for this euphorbia. It's a nasty little rotter of a plant.
I saw the videos that you put up.
Yeah, not good.
Streaming. You looked in a
Wasn't
terrible
good.
state.
No, it was very real.
But all good now.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see me. So, the greater public knows you from your wonderful series Homes Under the Hammer. I've been a fan of it since I can't remember. We're into, 23 series now?
Yeah, we're filming series 24, I think.
Right.
Which
and
is amazing.
For me, it's become like the Friends of property programmes. You put the telly on, you flick around, and you'll find it on telly somewhere. It's on about 3 or 4 different channels, and there we are. Oh, what year is this? Oh, 2007. The Beige Coat series. Yes,
yeah, exactly.
2004. And the checkered shirt series. Yeah.
Yeah, and Lucy was my Rachel.
Yeah.
So,
but it's all around the world. I mean, it just shows how loved it is.
It is, and I'm really proud of it. I mean, I've been there since day one.
Yeah.
Which was actually 16 years ago now. So we've done 1,800 programs. We're on series 24. I mean, I've visited about 5,000 properties in my time. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, to have a TV show which is been going so long and still is very, very current, is not out of date in terms of a format, which is still fascinating. I think is amazing. I mean, to find a format like that, it's a sort of the holy grail of television. But I think it's just that we all have a fascination, don't we, in property? And
it's been the thing to be fascinated with.
Yeah, and I think the nice thing about Homes of the Hammer is that it gives people the belief, quite rightly, that you can do it. You watching there, eating your chocolate hobnob, in your slippers. You could actually do this. And I think one of the things that has made it so successful is that people recognise people on there who are like them and go, you know what, we could give that a go. And actually, I know the auctioneers tell me, we have done so much to demystify property auctions as a way to buy property. Because you see it happening and you see that people, not always, do well, but a lot of the time they do.
Yeah. I mean, I'll come to that in a sec. The things that people get wrong, but are there any memorable properties that, you can still think of from 10 years ago or so, or something that really sticks out? There's one I remember particularly. There was a guy, he went to buy, and he didn't get it, so he bought something else. And then he went to view it, and you were there, and this was one of yours, and he said something along the lines of, well, it's not actually the house I thought it was, and it's not in the postcode I thought it was.
And I bought it for my son who doesn't want to live here.
Yes.
I remember him well. I said, so it wasn't a very good day at the auction then, really, was it? You've ended up a house. And that was a really interesting one, because this guy bought the house thinking it was in one postcode of London.
Yeah.
It was like N5 or N6. And he thought it was in whichever the more expensive one is. And in fact, it was in the other one. So he paid a price that it would be fair for that other one, but really wasn't fair for where he bought. So complete disaster. But it was a classic example of somebody not doing their research.
Yeah. I mean, after all these years that the show's been on, there's people that still go to auctions who are big fans of the show, and they still make all the mistakes that you warn them about. Which research is one of them. Run us through. What are the Martin Roberts top tips for buying at auction?
Well, the golden rules, number one, is go and visit the blooming property before you buy it. I mean, it still amazes me that people go ahead and buy a house having not seen it. And we're not talking about spending 30 grand, because you couldn't go far wrong with that, could you? It was 30 grand. It's a house, as long as it's got, you got the right legal title and all that kind of stuff. But people spent like 300,000 or 400,000 pounds or 500,000. There was one couple, okay, I love this story, is one of my favourite stories, and I can share properties with you. But stories of people, they'd bought this house in Cornwall, and they went to go and see it, having not seen it before the auction. And they couldn't find it.
Oh, okay.
Because they thought they knew where it was, so they drove down this country lane, tum going, oh, no, actually, where's the house we bought? It's not here. So they were driving around this village trying to find the house they bought. And in the end, they had to go up to the post office. Post offices are always great for local information. And they asked the postman, do you know a house that sold at auction around here recently? And the postman said, yeah, Shelling's house is down there, blah, blah, blah. So they drove down this road, yes, and they got their auction catalogue out, and they recognised it from the auction catalogue. That was the first time they'd seen it. Not only had they not seen it, they couldn't find it when they'd bought it. That really took the biscuit.
Yeah.
So that's number one. You've got to see the property. There are 1,000 things that could be wrong with it that you will not know unless you get there. Could be on a flight path. Could be right by the side of a really smelly farm. It could have the neighbours from hell. It could be, by the side of a really busy road. It could be, in the middle of a housing, of an industrial estate, which has got factories which are working all the way through the night. You don't know until you go and feel it and touch it. A second one is, people who don't read the legal pack and check that out. I mean, you need to have it looked over by a solicitor, really. And make friends with the solicitor so they're not charging you full whack every time you go to buy, because you won't always be successful. But it's got to be looked over, because, you and I aren't legal people. We don't know the nuances of the law. I mean, you and I can tell if it's freehold or leasehold.
Yeah.
But, say there's a covenant in there which says you can't stay in the house between the hours of 8 p.m. and 4 a.m. in the morning. There could be all sorts of silly things in there.
Are there any typical things that come up in legal packs?
Rights of way and covenants. So things that have been set in place before you bought the property. So previously. Okay, so your deal might be quite straightforward. But for instance, you're buying a plot of land, and you think, whoa, I'll be able to build something on there. And then you realise there's something called an overage. So that this person who previously sold it had put a clause in which said that if anything is built on there, I want 50% of the profits. Okay. And that's not, you weren't buying it from that person, you're buying it from the person who that person sold it to. But that covenant carries on. It doesn't disappear with the sale. It's there, always.
Something like a ransom strip, they'd be there, wouldn't they? When there's a little piece of land that gives you not direct access. Access, rights of way. Things you take for granted. A house that you can't actually get to legally. You might have a right, you might have an established sort of way that people get to it, but unless it's in the document you've got a right way over it, actually, things can happen in the future, which means that someone turns around and says, not honest to that, I don't want you to drive your car to your house. So legal pack, viewing.
Finances. Get finances sorted out. You haven't got long. There are loads of people who will lend on auction properties, and there's loads of people who do short-term lends on auction properties, which might work for a buy to do up and sell on strategy. But if you're looking to hold for a bit longer, you're going to traditional lenders. They need time, okay? And you haven't got time at an auction. So you need to start the process well in advance. And you can use traditional finance to buy auction properties, but you need to set the ball rolling well before the auction. So you need to go into that auction knowing when the hammer goes down, if you bid, you can complete. Because a lot of people think it's a sort of halfway house contract when you buy. It ain't.
No.
It's a proper exchange of contracts.
Yeah, hammer goes down.
Hammer goes down. It's exactly the same contract as if you'd had a solicitor going backwards and forwards for 3 or 4 months. You know, you're equally legally bound, and you pay 10% deposit on the day, and then, you know, a maximum of 28 days later, you've got to come up with the 90%. And if you can't, you are in big poo. So finances. Yeah, and don't get carried away. Don't get carried away at the auction. You know, there are bargains at auction, without a doubt, but not all auction properties are bargains. And unless you've done your research, you may well find out that actually there's an estate agent who's got a similar property on the market for less. And people get carried away at the auctions sometimes. They must be an auction, must be a bargain.
I'm very excited.
Yeah. And then
that reminds me of another clip, actually. It was with, I can't remember, Graham. He has the stripy blazer.
Yeah.
There's this lady, she's sat in the front row and she keeps looking around going, who's bidding against me? And he's going, that's my job, not yours. And oh, but I can't see who it is. She, in the end, did get it, but it had the audience, the crowd in absolute raptures. And when she did it, when the hammer came down, she got such a round of applause.
Yeah, it was in Exeter.
This was another one that you met.
It was in Exeter, and she was called Jackie. Yeah. And when somebody else started bidding...
She was great, though. Great value.
But she stood up and said, who's bidding against me?
Yes.
It was just brilliant. The auction is going... nobody's ever actually asked me that before. But then the guy who was bidding against her was a real devil, because he then started hiding behind a pillar at the back. Yeah. So whenever she turned around, she couldn't see who was bidding.
Yes.
Drove her absolutely bonkers. But at the end, she got a round of applause.
She did. Did she overpay for it in the end? I can't remember.
You know what? It was a personal purchase. So it was for her son and daughter as their first house. So you know what? She was happy with what she paid. Did she overpay? Irrelevant. She wasn't doing it for pure financial gain.
Yeah. So we've got the finances, we've got the viewing, we've got the legal pack.
We've got the not going overboard.
Not going overboard.
Yeah.
Not getting overexcited. So know what your limit is and stick to it. So if it's 66,500, you stop there.
That is what you do.
So there's so much about buying at auction and just investing that, you know, as entertaining as Hammer is, you can't possibly put it across completely.
No.
Is that what meant sort of influenced you to write your books, Making Money from Property and the Property Auction Guide?
It did, because auctions are very specific. There's things about auctions which are different. Like, you know, investing in property has a common thread to it as to why you're doing it, how, you know, what's the advantage of property, But when it comes to actual auctions, there's lots of nuances that you need to take into account. So first book I wrote was Making Money from Property, which is like a 101. It's a starting ground, everything you need to know about investing in property. And that's what my training course, the Martin Roberts Making Money from Property brand and training course is based on. And it really is a great grounding in lots of things. But then, like with the advanced trainings that Legacy provide, it's... you need to specialise if you want to specialise, and I felt that, you know, auctions definitely are something that would benefit specialisation. So I wrote the Property Auction Guide. I'm very excited to announce that coming out in the very near future is my Property Auction Masterclass.
Oh, exciting!
Which will be an online training course, which people can 12 modules, taking you through the whole of the auction process, from where you find the properties, how you finance them, actually going to 5 properties, going round them and using my experience to say what's going on in my head as I'm visiting various properties. You know, this is what I'm thinking. I'm looking at that crap.
Truly expert eye as you're looking around.
And we followed me for a day, going around 5 properties.
Fantastic.
And then we actually go to an actual auction. And I'm actually bidding on one of the properties. I actually tried to buy one of the properties. I wasn't successful. I was overbid, but actually that was good because it shows that you need to stop. But you go through the whole process. You're actually in an auction, so it's a course that people can do at home, you know, at their own in their own time. but it teaches them everything they need to know about buying property at auction. And I, when I set out doing it, I thought, can I really fill 12 modules with this? Is it possible? Oh my gosh, I could have done 24. I mean, it was really interesting. But it's all broken down into bite-sized chunks.
How long is each module?
It varies. Some modules are half an hour, the modules 45 minutes. And so it's an hour. And of course, they're broken. Each module is broken down into sub-modules. So in module 2, you got 5 different sub-modules in module 2. So you do it in your own time, and you can stop it and start it. And that's the great thing about online training is you take it in your own time. Some people could thrash through it in 3 or 4 days, but other people might take a month to do it.
But at the end of it, it'll give people the real confidence to go in there and actually buy. And
it's very practical.
Yeah.
You see me doing it. And at the end of it, I do say in the course, you now know as much about buying property at auction as me, and you will. And actually, there is an opportunity, which we decided would be quite fun, as an optional sort of an optional thing you can add on to the course, is that you will go to an auction with me.
Oh, brilliant.
So there aren't many of those available, but we're offering a few people the chance to actually go to a real-life auction in my company. So that'd be quite fun.
Exciting. And when's that launch?
So in the next few weeks.
End of September, October?
Yeah.
October 2019, just in case you're watching this in 2022. I don't know.
Yeah, that's
It'll
true.
Still be out there.
Yeah, no, it will. Yeah, definitely.
It's the wonder of the internet.
Yeah, exactly. No,
Fantastic. And you talked about your property course, the 3-day property training, making money from property.
That's been going for 10 years.
Yes.
I mean, over 10 years.
I was just going to say, it must be about 10 years.
Yeah,
I remember being on the very first free seminar, in fact. And there's a number coming up, if you are watching this, October 2019, November 2019. Look out for Southampton, Milton Keynes, Manchester, Exeter, Guildford and Essex. We'll have a link below, so click on it now to go through and you can find out where there's a free seminar of Martin Roberts' Making Money from Property workshop.
I think we'll probably have a link linking to
the Masterclass.
The Masterclass.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because what we're doing is giving people an opportunity to get the first module for free, so they can see the kind of thing.
We can't tell them about it and tease them and not give them opportunity to link through. Fantastic. So just talking, I want to come on to your foundation shortly, but just sticking with investing at the moment, what do you think are the big challenges facing landlords and property investors at the moment?
So the challenges facing landlords are, it does seem at times like the government is against landlords, private landlords. And I'm really, really vocal, and I feel really passionate about the fact that private landlords use their own money to bring, more often than not, derelict housing back into use. And yes, they make money out of it, but it's a business like any other business. So why shouldn't they? They're offering the good landlords, and the majority of landlords are good landlords, are providing housing that just wouldn't be there. So when they start getting penalised, by extra stamp duty, by not being allowed to claim for various things, when they're running it as a business, when some of the rules and regulations are just so onerous, it seems to me, it really is shooting the UK property market in the foot, because nobody else is going to step in if often smaller landlords may have 2 or 3 properties, decide it's not for us. Nobody else is going to suddenly provide the housing that they provide. And if you ask people who are renting, would you like to have more places to rent? They would say absolutely. So I think, to me, it seems that, somebody somewhere, especially in the government, has got something against private landlords, and that is rubbish. And the National Landlords Association, the LLA, completely agree, and they're trying to fight the corner of good landlords. And I totally approve of the idea of auditing landlords and having approval screens and certain screens and certifying them and making sure they're doing a good job. You don't want rogue landlords out there, of course not. But the majority of landlords aren't. And to penalise the others just for trying to do a fair business seems crazy. So the challenge is that's out there. On the counter to that, the more people that drop out of it, the more opportunities there are for the people who are in it. And so you are seeing opportunities with properties coming back on the market. Some of them which are already tenanted, ready to just take over and run a business. And the demand for housing, the demand
is there.
for rental properties has never been higher.
Yeah, it's been sort of stagnant at around about the 250, 300,000 shortfall for about 10 years or more, even longer. Yeah. But you're saying there that the government has got this idea that the private landlord is stealing houses from those that could buy. Last week I did some filming and we filmed, not that I'm treading on your toes, we filmed 4 different properties. 2 were almost derelict, unused commercial properties, and they're going to be converted into commercial units. Another one was a guest house. There was another one, a house that they're turning into a 6-bed HMO, but for vulnerable people. Oh. So these are all investors, and some of them are products of your training, by the way, and they're they're not buying the first-time buyer houses that the government think we're all stealing. So I think that's a terrific example. Yeah. And these people are actually having to jump through hoops and they're negotiating with the councils and stuff, but they're still providing between these 3 investors something like 50 homes between them.
Exactly.
These property developments.
It doesn't make sense.
Anyway, more on property in a while. Let's talk about the Martin Roberts Foundation, and you're working with the NSPCC and Childline.
Yes.
And I've heard you talk about this before, and particularly about the children's books, the Villes series, and the latest one, which is Sadsville. Tell us about the series and the plans for Sadsville.
So about 10 years ago, thank you, about 10 years ago, I started writing this series of children's books called The Villes. And I was captivated by this concept that there were different lands where something was going wrong. So in Tidesville, everyone's tired all the time. In Colesville, it's always cold. In Boardsville, everyone's always bored. In Hotsville, it's always hot. You get the kind of idea. And there's a hero of the stories called Herman, and he gets on a double-decker bus every morning. He doesn't know where the bus is going, but he arrives in these lands and he sees that there's a problem. And he then, as an outsider, goes, why is it always hot in Hotsville? Why is it always windy in Windyville? Because the locals are so wrapped up in it, they just take it for granted. Mm-hmm. And through working with the locals, he sorts out the problem. And there's always a silly, whimsical reason as to why. For instance, in Windyville, the man who's built the new wind farm is colourblind. So he's wired the windmills wrong. So instead of taking the air, they're blowing like a big fan. So it's always windy. Great. In Colesville, the man who's making ice creams in the new ice cream factory in Colesville has forgotten a really important piece of kit at the end of the ice cream manufacturing machine. So it's dumping freezing cold water into Colesville River. Colesville River freezes, and therefore everyone's cold. So it just, to my mind, it's aimed at sort of 7-year-olds to 10-year-olds. And to my mind, it's beautiful illustrated children's books. To my mind, it just got kids thinking outside the box, Mm-hmm. And what the fun thing is, you've got to try and work out why it's windy in Windyville or whatever before Herman does. So then I've always had a lifelong association with the NSPCC. My mum used to work for the NSPCC, and as a child I grew up with that, and I've got children of my own. And once you've got children of your own, even more so, you can't bear the thought of any child suffering. So I started thinking what I could do to help the NSPCC more, because I'd already been doing lots of charity work and auctions and things for them. So I came up with this idea of a book called Sadsville. And exactly like the other places, it's a land where everyone's sad, mm-hmm. Okay? And Herman turns up and he tries to work out why everyone is sad. And the reality is the man who's making the crisps in the local crisp factory is putting real onions in the cheese and onion crisps. So everyone's crying all the time. So that's the whimsical reason. But in the process, again, it gives children this thing of, okay, well, if I'm sad, maybe I can do something to change it. And I've linked this up with the NSPCC, who are very much trying to get their message out to an ever-increasingly young audience, because believe it or not, the age at which children are suffering from all sorts of problems is getting younger and younger. The world of social media, the world of whatever, is taking that age range lower. So the book, at the end of it, I decided should guide children who need it to the support of the NSPCC. But first of all, make them realise that sometimes it's okay to be sad, right? I mean, your pet dies, your holiday ends, your friend moves away, your football team loses. You're going to be sad. In some cases, you'll be crying. That's the kind of level of sadness you're at. But that's what I call good sad. It's not pleasant, but it's okay. It's part of life. And then there's the bad sad. Mm-hmm. The bad sad's where you've really got problems, where you're being bullied, where you're being abused, where you just really need help and support. And in those instances, turn to the NSPCC for help. So my vision is to give a free copy of this book to every single child aged 8 and 9, because that's the age range that the NSPCC are targeting. Every single 8 and 9-year-old in the UK.
And you started in the south?
And we started in Somerset, which is where I live. So we gave out 11,000 copies of the books in Somerset. We then did Hampshire. We did 24,000 copies of the books in Hampshire. So we've done Somerset and Hampshire. But I want to take it to the whole country.
How many books is that then?
750,000.
Wow.
Maybe, but it's an achievable. And to do that, I need about 400,000 quid. So it's not an insane amount of money to give every single child this book, which could potentially help them not only deal with mental issues, but also seek help if they need it. So we've been looking at businesses and asking them if they can help us and support us. But running alongside that, I'm really, really excited that we're about to launch Another launch, yes.
I feel privileged today, Martin. Thank you so much.
In the next 2 weeks or so.
2 launches.
A crowdfunding initiative.
Yeah.
Whereby we're asking people to give money from £5 to whatever they want to give upwards, and they will get an incentive. So if they give us a certain amount of money, they'll get a free copy of the book, a signed copy of the book. If they give us a little bit more, they get a signed illustration from the book, and they'll get a limited edition thing for the book. They get a visit from me if they provide a significant amount of money. There's lots of incentives, and we decided to set our goals at something quite achievable, we hope, which is to look to give every single school in the UK a copy of the book to start with, along with a teacher's guide, an assembly pack, so that as a first step, every single school will get a copy of the book, and they will use that to give an assembly to the children.
So it'll be part of the school year.
Yeah, absolutely. You'll do a lesson which is about safeguarding and about sadness and emotions. There's a whole lesson plan that we've written in conjunction with educational experts who, we'll do that. And for that, we need about 25 grand. So that's a lot more achievable than the 400,000 we need. So that's our first level of goal. So that's what we're aiming for. Okay. And then if we get 50 grand, we'll give each school 2 copies of the book. And then if we get more money, we'll do regions. If anyone's out there who can help us with maybe we're thinking that maybe a school, when they see the book, we're going to sell the books to the schools at cost price, at £1 a book. So if they've got 40 children in year 4, which is the 8 and 9-year-olds,
is that the age group that you're aiming at, the year 4?
Don't give 40 quid to give an entire school a copy of the book. And there might be people who will help support, an area, a local education authority or a region. So it's all about getting that word out there, and that's going to go live very, very soon. And hopefully somewhere around this, there is the link to that. If you search Sadsville and Martin Roberts on crowdfunding.co.uk, you will find it.
So that's Sadsville?
Sadsville or Martin Roberts on crowdfunding.co.uk. Okay. Hopefully, by the time people are seeing this, if they go to Google Martin Roberts crowdfunding, it will come up. But it's on
that 25 grand, as you say, is easily achievable. I'm sure we'll have that.
Yeah, well,
Christmas.
We hope so. Well, that's the plan. Yeah, and then people will get to know more about it, and then hopefully we'll go on and get our goals. I mean, I'm not going to stop until every single child gets a free.
What actually inspired you to write the book? I mean, you talked about why you're doing it and who it's for, but what
I've got
you've got kids of your own.
I've got kids of my own. Yeah, I've got a 9 and a 12-year-old. So that was one of the inspirations, and then I don't know. It's a wonderful release, to sit there and just write and be creative. It's something that is just I find quite magical, and I love the idea of sitting down to write when things don't exist. So I sit there, come around in the morning, and there are no characters. When I came down in the morning, when I wrote down Windyville, the man who is the owner of the wind farm, Hank, this colourblind Hank, he didn't exist. I didn't quite know why the wind. I didn't know, and then suddenly this Hank exists, and then my beautiful illustrator, or my fantastic illustrator, she's beautiful as well, Jackie. She then took my words and turned them into this amazing character called Hank, who's this American guy. Who wears really dark glasses and doesn't help his colourblindness. So it's really good. So I love that creativity.
Do you know where Herman's going on his next bus trip yet?
Yeah, I'm currently writing, and it's so funny because I do keep forgetting, Forgetfulville. So, and honestly, I keep on forgetting what the next one is. But you'll love this one because the main character in Forgetfulville is a dentist. So can you imagine, there's a scene in Forgetfulville where she's in the dental surgery and there's a man on the chair And she's forgotten who he is, and her appointment system's wrong. So she's saying to him that he's there to have his 4 front teeth taken out, and he's pleading with her that no, he isn't. But she checks her computer, and actually, it says on her computer that he's there for his teeth out. So there's this wonderful scene where she's battling him, trying to take his teeth out, and it's a great scene. I loved writing that one. But yeah, that's a fun story, and it's everything to do with an electronic programmer, as in, you're one of these Outlooky type things that has a bit of a problem in their software.
A bit of a virus.
It has something. I won't give the whole game away, but there is a reason why everyone's forgetful.
Okay, and that's called Forgetfulville.
Forgetfulville.
Forgetful.
Yeah, but that'll be a while before that one comes out,
Yeah.
because that hasn't even been illustrated yet, and I haven't even finished writing it.
Yeah. What's it called again?
It was so funny. It was really, really funny because I'm aiming for 20, and I could remember 19, and I could keep on. The 20th one. Me and the illustrator just were in fits of laughter trying to remember it. What is it? It's forgetful. Very funny. So I actually start the book with a little prologue from me saying, just to let you know that Forgetfulville was almost forgotten.
Well, I've got an idea for you. I'll come to that before we finish. Back to property just for a moment, and the industry itself. So, do you think the government, once they've got Brexit sorted, if they ever do you think they'll think about the investor market and actually think it's kind of related to what we were talking about earlier? Do you think it's that they'll realise it is actually an important part of the market, and that landlords aren't money-grabbing ogres, as they are so often portrayed, aren't they? Do you think they'll actually think, right, let's use these people. They are putting money into this industry.
So, I'm not really sure how the business of government works.
Yeah.
But I do know that there is something called lobbying.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that is basically, as far as I can figure out, people who have an opinion talking to people to try and persuade them to take that opinion. So the more lobbying that the likes of the National Landlords Association and the Residential Landlords Association
whom has just joined, actually.
Yes, indeed. The more they can do to just stand in front of people who make decisions and try to get them to understand, the better. I think it will also depend on, if there's a general election, who gets elected. But at some point, the people have got to get it, because there'll be enough statistics before very long.
Okay, so taxation is a big thing. If you were, say, Chancellor of the Exchequer, or maybe one of his advisors, what changes would you make?
Well, I'd ditch the extra 3% on the second property purchase for a start. I'd get rid of inheritance tax, because everyone thinks that's a real not fair, because you've paid money, and everyone's paid money to get these assets that they own. And then why should you pay, say, a second round of tax on that? I would reverse the rulings in terms of, landlords being able to offset expenditure against their income, because that's crazy. I mean, you can still do it if you're running it as a business and companies and all that kind of stuff. If you're running it as an individual, some of those advantages are disappearing, as in mortgage interest rate relief.
That's the crazy one for me, and I've talked about this before. It's effectively taxation on your your turnover, not your profit, which is the only industry. I can't think of any industry.
There isn't any other. So I'm hoping that sense will prevail. It's about people. The worst case scenario is that it frightens off so many people that they realise that there's a crisis and, oh my gosh, we're going to have to change it. Let's hope it happens before that, so that they will, realise and realise that actually, I want to, by and large, doing the country a favour.
So things like rent-to-rent, serviced accommodation, they're the hot strategy at the moment, or the hot thing, trendy thing to get into. Can you see any new trends coming through that investors and developers might be getting into in, say, the next 2 or 3, 5 years or something?
No, I think they are pretty much on the money.
People talk about modular property.
I mean, I've seen some really interesting stuff in my time. There was a guy who talked about modular who was building things out of old shipping containers.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a great idea. Yeah. I mean, they're not the prettiest of things, possibly.
No.
But he was actually building them out of those and then shipping them around the world.
Actually, my dad lived in one when he worked in Saudi Arabia back in the late 70s for about 6 months. So it's not a new concept, but, Okay, well, last thing. Here's my idea for you before I let you go. What have you ever thought of taking Homes Under the Hammer overseas?
Yes.
Like an international... Damn it, I thought I was...
No, you see, we did.
It would be Wish You Were Here meets Hammer.
It would be a great idea. The thing is, we've got such a well-established auction process in the UK that I don't think is replicated anywhere else in the world. So in America, they have auctions, but they have them on the steps of the... either on the steps of the courthouse, if the property's been repossessed, or somebody will have an auction in their home. So you'll be in a house.
They do that in Australia.
Yeah.
On the
doorstep.
I see. I was thinking international auctions here for properties overseas. So it'd be like we could call it Wish You Were a Place in the Sun Under the Hammer. I'm a select. Get me out of here.
That has a ring to it. Not a very good ring, but it has a ring. I
so you can't see a TV exec taking up my idea anytime soon, then?
Don't call them; they'll call you. Sorry.
Oh well, Martin, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Good to talk.
Yeah, you too. And don't forget, if you're watching this for the first time, click subscribe, click the bell icon so you can get all the updates of Property Box content, programs, top tips, all of our content that's out over the next weeks and months. Thanks for watching. See you next time.